In the heart of the Egyptian desert, a paradox unfolded that would forever alter the course of one of history's most illustrious civilizations. For centuries, Egypt had been an unyielding bastion, its borders seemingly drawn by the gods themselves. The Nile, the Sahara, and the Sinai Desert formed a natural fortress. For over a millennium, Egypt thrived under the protective veil of Ma'at, the divine order that placed Egypt at the center of the universe. Beyond lay chaos, the Red Land, a desolate expanse where civilization dared not tread. But around 1700 BC, this sense of divine security was shattered. From the northeast came the Hyksos, outsiders who arrived with a mastery of technologies that would render the Egyptian military obsolete. The horse-drawn chariot and the composite bow, revolutionary in their design and potential, were unknown to the Egyptians. These innovations were the culmination of a technological evolution that had been brewing quietly beyond Egypt's borders. While Egypt remained ensconced in its ancient traditions, the world beyond was innovating. Across the Levantine corridor, a new martial age was dawning. Nomadic tribes were taming the horse, and craftsmen were creating weapons of unprecedented power. The composite bow, a marvel of engineering, was crafted from wood, horn, and sinew. Its range and power were unlike anything the Egyptians had ever faced. Meanwhile, the chariot, a lightweight platform designed for speed and maneuverability, became a mobile attack vehicle. The Hyksos did not storm the Egyptian borders with a sudden blitzkrieg. Instead, they infiltrated slowly, taking advantage of a period of internal strife known as the Second Intermediate Period. Egypt was divided, its central authority weakening under the strain of short-lived pharaohs and political fragmentation. Into this power vacuum, the Hyksos moved, gradually establishing themselves in the eastern Nile Delta. The archaeological site of Avaris, the Hyksos capital, tells a story that challenges traditional narratives. Excavations led by Manfred Bietak have revealed a city where cultures coexisted and intermingled. Minoan frescoes adorned the walls of palaces. Canaanite-style temples stood alongside Egyptian shrines. Bronze weaponry lay alongside Egyptian pottery. The reality was not of a city under siege, but of a cultural mosaic, a fusion of traditions and technologies. A genetic study in 2020 confirmed the complex nature of Hyksos society. Ancient DNA from Tel El Daba revealed a diverse population with ties to the Levant and Anatolia. This was no simple invasion but a gradual integration, a coup from within that saw the Hyksos rise to power in Lower Egypt by 1650 BC. They assumed the trappings of Egyptian royalty, adopting titles and worshipping Egyptian gods, but they retained the technological edge that had brought them success. The introduction of the horse and chariot, combined with the composite bow, reshaped military strategy. The Egyptians, accustomed to slow-moving infantry, were unprepared for the speed and precision of chariot warfare. The psychological impact was profound. The Egyptians, who had never before seen a horse, were caught off guard, their armies ill-equipped to face this new kind of warfare. The Hyksos occupation lasted roughly a century, during which time Egypt was a vassal state. The humiliation of foreign rule left a deep scar, but it also sowed the seeds of transformation. The native Egyptian rulers who fled south to Thebes began to learn from their conquerors. They studied the weapons and tactics that had defeated them, absorbing and refining these innovations. Ahmose I, a Theban prince, eventually rose to power and led a campaign to expel the Hyksos. His success was built on the very technologies the Hyksos had introduced. With chariots and composite bows, the Egyptians turned the tide, driving the Hyksos out of Egypt and pursuing them into Canaan. Ahmose's victory marked the beginning of the New Kingdom, a period of unprecedented expansion and military prowess. This transformation from a subjugated people to a dominant empire was fueled by the very defeat that had once seemed catastrophic. The Hyksos had inadvertently provided Egypt with the tools for empire building. Through defeat and adaptation, Egypt rose to become a formidable force, reshaping the ancient world in its image. Yet, this story of defeat turned into triumph is just the beginning of our exploration into the paradox that remade Egypt. The expulsion of the Hyksos marked a pivotal turning point in Egyptian history. Under Ahmose I, Egypt began to rebuild, not as it had been but into something entirely new, an empire that would dominate the ancient world. While the Hyksos had been defeated, their innovations had permanently altered Egyptian military strategy. The Egyptians had learned from their occupiers, incorporating the chariot and composite bow into their arsenal. They were ready to wield them with devastating efficiency. As the new kingdom dawned, Egypt entered a period of aggressive expansion. The pharaohs of the 18th dynasty, beginning with Ahmose I, embarked on campaigns that extended Egyptian influence far beyond their traditional borders. The driving force behind this expansion was not just military might, but a renewed sense of mission, a determination to never again be vulnerable to foreign subjugation. Thutmose I and his grandson Thutmose III epitomized this era of conquest. Thutmose I pushed south into Nubia, securing vital trade routes and resources. His campaigns established Egyptian dominance over the region and laid the groundwork for further expansion. Thutmose III, often called the Napoleon of Egypt, took these ambitions even further. He led a series of military campaigns, known as the Megiddo campaigns, that extended Egyptian control into Canaan and Syria. His strategic use of chariots and archers allowed him to outmaneuver and overpower opponents, cementing Egypt's reputation as a formidable military power. The Egyptians did not merely conquer, they assimilated. Each victory brought new peoples, new ideas, and new wealth into the Egyptian fold. The spoils of war filled Egyptian coffers, funding monumental building projects. Temples rose in Karnak and Luxor, adorned with inscriptions of military prowess and divine favor. Egypt was not just a nation, it was becoming a beacon of civilization, a hub of trade and culture that attracted artisans, traders, and scholars from across the ancient world. This era of prosperity and power, however, was not without its complexities. The introduction of new technologies and ideas challenged traditional Egyptian beliefs. The Hyksos had exposed Egypt to a broader world. The Egyptians were now grappling with the cultural implications of their newfound power. Their society, once insular and static, was becoming increasingly cosmopolitan. Foreign influences seeped into art, religion, and governance, creating a vibrant but sometimes tumultuous blend of traditions. The pharaoh Amenhotep III presided over Egypt at the height of its power. His reign marked by diplomatic marriages, monumental construction, and a flourishing of the arts. His son Akhenaten, however, would challenge the status quo in unprecedented ways. Akhenaten is best known for his religious revolution, in which he attempted to replace the traditional pantheon of Egyptian gods with the worship of Aten, the sun disk. This radical shift, often viewed as the world's first monotheistic religion, disrupted the established religious order and caused significant internal strife. Akhenaten's focus on religious reform at the expense of military and economic stability left Egypt vulnerable. Upon his death, the traditional order was restored under Tutankhamun, who is famous today more for his tomb's discovery than for his short reign. Yet, the legacy of Akhenaten's experiment lingered, reflecting the ongoing tension between tradition and innovation that defined the new kingdom. As Egypt continued to navigate this complex landscape, the military remained a central pillar of power. The pharaohs of the 19th dynasty, including the legendary Ramesses II, understood the importance of military strength. Ramesses II's reign was marked by a series of campaigns designed to secure Egypt's borders and assert its dominance. His most famous battle, the Battle of Kadesh, was a testament to Egyptian resilience and strategic prowess. Though the battle ended in a stalemate, the subsequent peace treaty with the Hittites, one of the earliest known in history, demonstrated Egypt's diplomatic acumen and the respect it commanded on the international stage. Yet, even in its zenith, Egypt was aware of the ever-present threat of external powers. The memory of the Hyksos occupation lingered, a reminder of what could happen if Egypt let down its guard. The wealth of the empire, its cultural achievements, and its military might were all part of a larger strategy to ensure that Egypt would never again be subjugated by foreign rulers. The story of Egypt's transformation from a conquered state to a conquering empire is one of adaptation and resilience. The Hyksos had inadvertently taught Egypt the importance of technological and strategic innovation, lessons that the Egyptians took to heart. As the new kingdom progressed, These lessons helped maintain Egypt's status as a superpower, but they also set the stage for future challenges. The interplay between tradition and innovation, isolation and interaction, would continue to shape Egypt, driving it toward both greatness and the inevitable trials that accompany such grandeur. As the new kingdom progressed, Egypt's empire stretched from the Nile Delta to the Euphrates, embodying a zenith of cultural and military prowess. Yet, as history has shown, the seeds of decline are often sown during periods of greatest success. The very innovations that had propelled Egypt to dominance also demanded constant adaptation, a reality the Egyptians were about to face. The latter part of the new kingdom saw internal tensions begin to strain the empire. The wealth and power accumulated through conquest brought not just prosperity, but also complexity. The administration required to manage such a vast domain became increasingly intricate. The resources needed to maintain military strength grew ever larger. The bureaucracy swelled, and with it, corruption and inefficiency began to seep into the seams of the Egyptian state. The priests of Amun in Thebes grew particularly powerful, amassing wealth and influence. Their influence rivaled even that of the pharaohs. This religious aristocracy became a state within a state, challenging royal authority. They diverted essential resources. The delicate balance of power that had sustained the empire started to tilt. Pharaohs found themselves contending with internal factions as much as with external threats. Externally, the geopolitical landscape was shifting. New powers were rising in the Near East, notably the Assyrians and the Babylonians. They were beginning to assert their influence in regions once dominated by Egypt. These emerging states posed new challenges that Egypt's traditional strategies were ill-equipped to handle. The Sea Peoples, a confederation of maritime raiders, further destabilized the region. Their origins remain a mystery, but their impact was undeniable. Around 1200 BC, they launched a series of attacks that rippled across the eastern Mediterranean. Egypt, under Ramesses III, managed to repel these invasions. But the effort drained the empire's resources and highlighted its vulnerabilities. Economically, Egypt was also facing pressures. The cost of maintaining a sprawling empire strained agricultural production. The societal reliance on agriculture meant that fluctuations in the Nile's behavior could have devastating consequences. The death of Ramesses III marked the beginning of a gradual decline. The subsequent rulers of the 20th dynasty struggled to maintain the empire's cohesion. The power of the pharaohs waned as the influence of regional governors and the priesthood grew. Internal dissent and succession disputes further weakened central authority, making it increasingly difficult to respond to external threats. Despite these challenges, Egypt left an indelible mark on the ancient world. Its art, architecture, and religious beliefs influenced neighboring cultures and left a legacy that endures to this day. The innovations and strategies born from conflict with the Hyksos had not only shaped Egypt's imperial era, but also laid the groundwork for future civilizations to build upon. The story of Egypt's rise and decline is a testament to the complexities of power, how it is gained, maintained, and lost. It is a narrative of adaptation and resilience, of a civilization that learned from its conquerors and used those lessons to forge an empire that would captivate the world for millennia. The paradox of Egypt's history lies in the duality of its achievements. The very tools and strategies that brought it greatness also sowed the seeds of its unraveling. By the end of the New Kingdom, Egypt was a shadow of its former self. The empire that had once dominated the ancient world had succumbed to the forces of time, change, and the relentless march of history. Yet, the lessons learned during its rise, the importance of adapting to new technologies, the necessity of strategic innovation, and the delicate balance of internal and external pressures remain relevant today. In the end, Egypt's legacy is not just in the monuments it left behind, but in the enduring lessons it teaches about the nature of power and the inevitability of change.